When Geno arrived in Connecticut in 1985, no one could have predicted that a young Italian coach would turn an unknown program into the greatest dynasty in college basketball history. Geno Auriemma, who recently became the most successful coach of all time, is watching his UConn empire crumble in viewership even as he continues to dominate on the court. This is all taking place at the exact moment when women's basketball is having its greatest moment of popularity in history, driven by a player who is doing something that no one has managed to do. Perhaps the most amazing thing was what happened between 2014 and 2017, during which the Huskies accomplished something that seemed straight out of a fiction film, as no one was able to defeat UConn in 111 straight games, despite winning 11 national titles, 22 Final Fours, and over 100 victories.
But nobody's printing. Diana Taurasi was right. This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality of that league, and she's a rookie.
That's correct. To put it in perspective, UConn played more than 100 games without losing. Even the greatest men's teams in history, with all their glamour and media attention, couldn't match this incredible accomplishment. But it wasn't only the stats that cemented UConn's status as a legend. The ARA program turned into a real star factory. Diana Taurasi Moore, Maya Sue Bird, Brianna Stewart, when everyone believed they had seen everything UConn could offer. The program managed to reinvent itself season after season. You see, decade after decade, the Huskies maintained a level of excellence that seemed impossible to sustain. The public no longer wondered if UConn would win, but by how many points. But in 2021, something would happen that would change everything. The list of players who passed through stores reads like a basketball hall of fame. Each of them not only dominated college basketball, but also revolutionized the professional sport. The nation's top recruit was set to join a program where being exceptional was the bare minimum expected, but what transpired in her first season exceeded even the most optimistic expectations of UConn's most ardent supporters in a matter of months. Paige Bueckers entered stores with the kind of expectations that could crush any 18-year-old athlete. In 5 decades of women's college basketball, Paige accomplished something no other freshman had before, and the Associated Press declared her the best player in the nation. Her talent to score goals, and her supernatural in addition to dominating the courts, court vision and natural charisma gained millions of social media fans. Gatorade and Nike hurried to sign deals with the new basketball sensation who seemed destined to take UConn's legacy to new heights, since PA's impact was so great that when name, image, and likeness rules were changed, she immediately became one of the most valuable college athletes in the nation. However, in December 2021, the player who appeared destined to be the next big name in women's basketball was forced to watch as no one could predict a knee injury surgery. Paige's absence from the bench would last not just months, but entire seasons, and as she battled her injuries, a new star was emerging in Iowa that would forever alter the landscape of women's college basketball. Meanwhile, a quiet revolution was taking place in Iowa. Caitlin Clark wasn't just playing basketball, she was redefining what we thought was possible on a court. Her half-court shots, which some thought were reckless, started to hit the net with frightening regularity. Soon, what seemed like madness became her trademark, but it wasn't just the long shots that made Clark special. The numbers started to mount in a way that seemed unreal. In January 2024, a regular game against Ohio State turned into a cultural event that drew 1.93 million viewers on Fox, the highest audience ever for a regular season women's college basketball game. The Clark effect turned every Iowa game into a must-attend event, with tickets selling out in minutes. Wherever Iowa played, arenas became routine, and her jersey became one of the best-selling items in college basketball, surpassing even male stars. However, perhaps most impressively, Clark changed the conversation about women's basketball. No longer was it a question of comparison with the men's game. Instead, she had created her own category, and people didn't watch her games out of obligation or support for women's sports. Instead, they did so because they didn't want to miss the next magical moment that would undoubtedly occur. As Clark dominated headlines and broke viewership records, an awkward question started to surface in store aisles. There have been many fierce rivalries in basketball history, but the difference between Paige and Caitlin on the one hand, Clark provides something unique that goes beyond conventional comparisons. The Paige on the one hand, Clark, a revolutionary who created her own empire from the ground up in Iowa, was the chosen heir of the greatest program in history, training to be the next in a line of legends. When Paige was injured and forced off the courts, Clark started her meteoric rise. The void left by the UConn star's absence was filled by a player who wasn't scared to shoot from the half-court logo, who made magical passes seem normal, and who turned regular games into cultural events. Breaking not only records, but also the unwritten rules of how the game should be played made the story even more fascinating. The media immediately fell in love with Clark's story. Her amazing playing style created viral videos and immediate headlines that took over social media. There is some irony in witnessing Geno Auriemma, the coach who recently won the most titles in college basketball history, struggle with a new type of difficulty. In news conferences, his answer started to take on a different significance. It wasn't anger nor resentment, but something deeper: the frustration of seeing the program he built over 4 decades begin to lose its magnetism, even while continuing to win. In a particularly revealing moment, after a convincing victory, Auriemma let slip something that seemed to have been keeping for a long time. "We build something special here," he said, his voice carrying a mixture of pride and concern, "something that elevates the level of the sport as a whole. And sometimes it seems like people simply assume our victories are guaranteed, that there's nothing special anymore about watching UConn play." The press room, usually noisy, fell silent. Most intriguing is that this diminishing public interest doesn't reflect a drop in the team's level of play. The Huskies continue to be one of the dominant forces in the sport, regularly reaching the final stages of the national tournament and developing some of the country's best players. It's as if the program had become a victim of its own success, with excellence becoming so common that it lost its ability to surprise. For someone who revolutionized women's basketball, who helped transform it from a niche sport into a cultural phenomenon, seeing interest decline precisely when the sport is exploding in popularity is particularly painful. But while some would see this as the end of an era, in UConn's meeting rooms, plans were already being made for what could be the greatest comeback in program history in a sport that never stops evolving. UConn's 2024 story offers us a fascinating lesson about adaptation and legacy. Perhaps that is precisely what makes this moment so special, as the program that for so long defined excellence in women's college basketball now finds itself at a unique crossroads: how to maintain its essence while adapting to a new world where victories alone are no longer enough to capture the public's imagination. As the Paige Bueckers return to the courts and women's basketball experiences reach their peak of popularity, Geno Auriemma celebrates his remarkable win record. UConn has the chance to reinterpret what it means to play collegiate sports. If there is one program that has consistently demonstrated its ability to transcend expectations and turn challenges into opportunities, it is UConn. The only question that remains is what story they will write next. And now I want to know from you whether you think UConn will be able to reinvent itself once again. Tell me in the comments what you think about this powerhouse. What started out as a story about a program losing media space might end up becoming something much bigger, a testament to the ability to reinvent without losing identity.